somebody hand me something? Oh, yeah, okay. And I will start with a roll call of committee members. And Councillor Salvador.
Good evening.
Councillor Clark.
Good evening.
Councillor Paquette.
Hello.
Mayor. Michael. Oh my gosh.
Hello.
Councillor Jans and Mayor Knack. No, okay. And we are joined by other council colleagues, including Councillor Parmar, who is still in chamber with us right now. And right before recess, we had heard the presentation on 7.1, impacts of weather events. And we do have some speakers registered on this item. I don't know if they are still with us, given where we are in this thing, but I have David, I'm going to just do, I'm guessing all as a panel, same as we've done before, right? For one panel. David Johnson, are you, I see you're online. Okay, perfect. Ryan Christensen.
Yes, I'm online.
Perfect. Raf Tenderenda.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Carolyn Ozaduk.
Carolyn was unable to make it due to the timing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I understand. And then Faline Schellenberg.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Well, you know, if you're just joining, I'll just give you a recap. We've actually switched our orders to just have 3-minute speaking time and then 3 minutes for councillor questions, just so we can get through the pretty packed agenda. So we will start with 3 minutes each, and then after we've asked you, or after you've done your presentations, we may have questions for you. So we'll start with Dave. David, please go ahead first.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Johnson. I'm the president of the Edmonton Construction Association. I'll be speaking quick to make the 3-minute timeline. So a brief history, the ECA represents the industrial, commercial and institutional construction sector in the Edmonton region. Many of our members help deliver public infrastructure Edmontonians rely on every day. That includes roads, bridges, underground utilities, drainage work, concrete, asphalt, public building, and neighborhood renewal, among other things. I'm here today to provide an industry perspective on what contractors are seeing on the ground, particularly as it relates to public works and infrastructure projects. Our members are used to working in adverse weather conditions. I mean, we work outside quite often. And most of the projects have built-in schedule contingencies for a lot of these types of events. This has been anything from a normal wet construction season. So the public reporting has shown that Edmonton's received more than 530 mils of rain in June and July. This is a record-setting amount, as we all know, and that's in a very short construction window that we have in the Greater Edmonton region. For infrastructure projects, the issue is not only the rain itself. The larger issue is what the rain leaves behind. So when a site becomes saturated, work doesn't automatically return to normal once the sky clears. Excavations may need to be pumped, trenches inspected, access routes might be too soft for equipment, base material might not be ready for compaction, and there might be some resequencing of work before the next activity can proceed. So this is why projects can be affected by rain, even on a sunny day. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm just trying to keep on time here. What we're hearing from our members is the impacts vary by project and by scope of work. So some contractors are reporting delays or backlogs of several weeks. However, it was noted in the presentation that many of the current municipal infrastructure projects, despite the delays, are still on track, which would be a testament to the hard work that is put in at the contractor level, of course, and in communication with the city. These are obviously core parts of municipal infrastructure delivery, but there are also activities where safety and quality cannot be compromised. So you can't properly pave over an unstable base. You can't recover lost time simply by asking people to work faster. You can't ignore trench safety. Again, that doesn't mean the contractors are standing still. We're moving forward. The city project teams are working through the same realities. So Again, the coordination between the city as project owner, the contractors, subcontractors, and utilities become really important. And I think for taxpayer-funded infrastructure, that really matters. So I think the key point is after a rainfall of this scale, construction recovery is measured not only by when the rain stops, but it's measured by when the ground, the site, and the sequence of work are ready and safe to proceed. I think that's my time.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate you adjusting your presentation. There may be questions, as I mentioned before. Now we go to Speaker Ryan Christensen.
Good afternoon. I'll adjust as well. So my name is Ryan Christensen. I'm here today as chair of the board of the Edmonton Construction Association. The ECA represents hundreds of contractors, trade partners, consultants, suppliers, and construction professionals. Construction in Alberta has always been seasonal, and weather has always been part of our business. We plan for it, we build contingencies around it, but what we experienced this summer, just like David has mentioned, and it's been mentioned by Jason and others, is that this summer was not typical construction weather. Frequency and intensity of rainfall created conditions that affected virtually every project underway in Edmonton, whether it was a rec facility, a school, a healthcare project, commercial development, housing project, or critical infrastructure. Contractors faced repeated weather events that left little opportunity for sites to recover between storms. Saturated ground conditions delayed excavation, foundations, underground services, concrete placement, exterior work, and site development. So what made this year particularly challenging was not a single storm event, again, like David mentioned, but the cumulative effect of weeks of disruption. Construction schedules are highly interconnected, as we all know. When one activity is delayed, every activity that follows is affected. The result is a cascading effect on labor, materials, productivity, and ultimately project delivery. So time lost in July is not easily recovered later in the season and often results in increased costs and reduced efficiency. The broader concern for our industry, I'll say, is that what was once considered exceptional is becoming increasingly common. As we discuss climate resilience and the future of our infrastructure, we must also discuss the resilience of the construction systems responsible for delivering that infrastructure. And that conversation must include fair risk allocation. Construction contracts are most successful when risks are assigned to the parties best able to manage them. Contractors can manage labor, productivity, and construction methods, but no contractor can manage record rainfall or prolonged weather events. When weather moves beyond what could reasonably have been anticipated, the focus should not be on which party absorbs the impact, should be on how project partners work together to overcome that. So fair risk allocation creates stronger partnerships, leading to better project outcomes, which will provide better value for taxpayers. The ECA and its members are proud partners in building this city. We're not seeking special treatment. We're asking for recognition that the conditions experienced this summer were extraordinary and their impacts are real, and that our approach to delivering project must continue to evolve alongside the changing realities we face. So I guess my request today is continued engagement with industry stakeholders, including the ECA, in discussions about how extreme weather risks are addressed in project planning, procurement, and contract delivery. The ECA stands ready to work alongside the city, its administration, and industry partners to identify practical solutions, because successful projects are not achieved when one party carries all the risks. They're achieved when the risk is understood, allocated fairly, and managed collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Raf, please go ahead.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Infrastructure Committee. My name is Raf Kendarenda. I live in Starling in Ward Nakota Iska, where I also serve as the president of the Big Lake Community League. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to acknowledge that it's been a long day for council and committee members with significant discussion around active transportation. So I appreciate the opportunity to raise this issue. I want to ask for clarity regarding the reconstruction of 137th Ave at Horseshoe Creek. Concerns with that crossing did not begin with the failure this summer. By 2024, EPCOR had acknowledged that the existing 800 mil culvert was undersized and that erosion was expanding. That EPCOR asset was not corrected before it failed. So when it did fail, the consequences extended directly to city infrastructure. The pedestrian bridge was closed first, then 137th Ave was lost. A large gorge formed through the crossing. That demonstrates how a deficiency in a utility-owned asset can have major consequences for city infrastructure, transportation, and public safety. I appreciate the recent update through Councillor Reed Clark's office that it indicates that 90% design was completed August 21st. Environmental permitting is being finalized, and the city is expecting to take over from the site from EPCOR August 31st. Construction is anticipated to take approximately 9 weeks, weather dependent. My first concern is schedule. A 9-week reconstruction is pretty tight. That would lead us to quite late fall. So I would ask the committee through administration, what work must be completed this fall for 137th Avenue to open safely? And what is the contingency plan if weather permitting or construction delays prevent this from happening? If this project cannot be completed before winter, what would that mean for reopening 137th Ave and securing the site? There's also traffic concerns. School starts next week. Starling Drive wasn't intended to take long-term detours. I would ask administration to consider whether additional traffic measures or safety measures are required while 137th Ave remains closed. Finally, I want to raise one specific issue. In May 2023, Councillor Andrew Knack, now mayor, publicly advised residents that guardrails would be coming up on the north side of the crossing. I chatted with the PM, the city PM. They said that's not going to be there. So I just want to see why there's no guardrail when that was promised. That creek is very steep at that angle, or at that spot. It's roughly 20 meters deep. And that I'm out of time. So thanks.
Thank you. And as we've mentioned to other speakers, recognizing the shorter times, there may be questions for you to finish your thoughts there. And then we go to our final speaker on this item, Fallon Schellenberg.
Hello, good evening. My name is Fallon Schellenberg, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Edmonton Construction Association and providing perspective as a local business owner in an Edmonton civil and paving construction industry. This summer's extreme rainfall has been exceptional, as mentioned. Repeated storms have saturated the soils, strained our water system, and left little time for sites, roads, and infrastructure corridors to dry out. While residents have faced flooded roads, traffic disruptions, and drainage issues, the construction industry has faced a similar crisis across civil infrastructure projects citywide. For contractors building roads, utilities, sidewalks, parking lots, roadway, neighborhood renewals, productivity has dropped sharply. Crews have spent days pumping water from excavations instead of installing infrastructure. Trenches ready one day were underwater the next, forcing repeated regrading, water removal, disposal of wet materials, and stabilization just to regain access. Utility work has been significantly delayed by groundwater, standing water, and unstable trenches. Paving crews have been mobilized only to be shut down because asphalt cannot be placed in rain or wet surfaces, while concrete crews have lost production days due to the conditions compromised by quality and curing. Projects planned for July are now being pushed into late August, September, or beyond, and in some cases all canceled together. Municipal road rehabs, industrial sites, parking lots, subdivisions, utility upgrades have all been affected, with each delay creating a domino effect to the next trade, contractor, and ultimately the owner. The concern is not simply about this year's delays. Saturated and uncompacted soils can have long-term consequences for pavement performance and infrastructure longevity. Today's shortcuts become tomorrow's potholes, settlement issues, and costly repairs. The financial impacts are equally as significant. Equipment sit idle and contractors absorb the cost by pumping, hauling, imported aggregates, poor compaction, geotechnical testing, and rework. Some sites have daily pumping simply just to maintain safe conditions. Contractors are also trying to recover lost production and ongoing labor shortages. When weather compresses months of work into shorter construction windows, competition for skilled laborers and operators become a major concern for companies. On behalf of the Edmonton Construction Association, I encourage the city to continue working with the industry and recognize the extraordinary impact these extreme weather conditions have had. Flexibility on schedules, contract administration, and sequencing will help the projects be completed safely and to be expected with quality standards. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And I'll look to committee and council if they have any questions for our panel of speakers on this item. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Ralph, I'll just go back to you Did I miss anything here? Because I'll ask admin some of the questions you had about just the timelines of 137, the guardrails, and traffic calming. Was there anything else?
If they could publicly let us know who the consultant is, the design consultant and the contractor, apparently they've been selected. So if that could be communicated on the website, that'd be great.
Okay. I actually had that on the list as well. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I just had a couple questions. I'm going to go to Ryan Christensen. Just wanted to get clarity on your points in the, so when we think about what happens today versus what happens tomorrow, I'm seeing that there's a desire for sort of a bit of a change in how projects are contracted. Was that my understanding correct in listening to you speak around extreme weather risk?
Yeah, it's similar to the one of the last points that Fallon made was it comes down to risk allocation, and the city has done a better job over the last several years on working on collaborative contract models and delivery models, and that's all we're really encouraging is to continue down that road and have open communication and be mindful of the fact that a lot of people will look at a project or their area or their neighborhood in a vacuum and say, I know that all these things have happened, but this is my project and I want it to be different. I want it to be unique. I want the water pumped out of my site. And so really it's looking at it from a big picture lens and working together collaboratively to come up with, like Fallon said, a solution that's not going to get it done the quickest necessarily, but one that's going to satisfy quality standards for years to come, and being understanding of what that schedule potential, moving it into 2027, what that could mean, a schedule extension, what it means to move some of the work from summer to winter, the impacts it has on the contractors from a cost perspective when you get into winter construction. So some of those things just need to be considered. Not saying they aren't. I would just say that we need to continue to work together and to make sure that there's a fair risk allocation across the table.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to go to Mr. Johnson. I thought your presentation was really interesting about, even if it's a sunny day, because of previous rain, it might not have the conditions for why they're not working on site. And I hear that a lot from Edmontonians around the fact that it's nice weather and they're not out doing the construction. I wanted you just to elaborate on from what you've observed in Edmonton, are we maximizing the available time to do the work, or is there more efficiencies to be had there?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course, you're right. So the public kind of looks and they see sunshine, they wonder why the work hasn't fully resumed. I think the key point is that the construction depends on the site conditions, not just the weather forecast. So a site might still need some pumping, drying, inspection, and prep before the next phase can safely proceed. And sometimes a previous scope or trade specialty might have been scheduled in at a specific time, and then they're scheduled for another project down the road. So they might have to leave that, and the whole project kind of backs up. There's a bit of a cascading effect. I think that reinforces the importance of resilient infrastructure, though. Weather events like this, they certainly make things more complex, but they show why drainage roads, utilities need to be built properly and maintained over the long term and not rushed.
That's great. Thank you so much. Any other questions of our speakers? Well, I definitely think I speak on behalf of my colleagues when I say thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you for being here and taking the time to join us this evening. And we'll now go to questions of administration. And please go ahead, Councillor Clark. I think you selected this item, correct?
I might have, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways.
I think you did. I think you did, so.
Okay, yeah, I'll just go to admin. And just some of the questions that Raf kind of brought up, just so we have a little clarity. Just on the opening date for 137 to have 9 weeks, I guess, what is the backup plan that he's asking if we can't get that done this year?
Yeah, I'd say the backup plan is it's still going to get open. And right now, if let's say it snowed in September, which hasn't happened in a long time, but we would make sure that it's open either with temporary asphalt or some kind of gravel surface. Obviously, these are kind of worst case scenarios. Our target is to still get the entire job done this year. 9 weeks is not unreasonable for this. And we've been assured we've actually got a contractor on board who's actually informing us of the schedule. This isn't just the City of Edmonton and EPCOR guessing on a schedule. We've got a contractor who's already on board helping inform what that schedule looks like.
And is that public info, who the contractor is yet, or not?
Yeah. We've shared that. I'd have to double check if it's on our website, but we, EPCOR had a design consultant. We've hired a contractor, kind of utilizing some of the emergency provisions that we have under our trade agreements. We can direct source that work. So we have a contractor who's actually locally very close from Riel Park, without naming names. So we've got somebody who's very, very close to the site. And they've been helping to kind of, the big question mark that had been kind of informing our next steps had been trying to assess what size of culvert, and then we could start to secure and source materials from that. And the contractor is prepared to kind of take this on and has the resources, and we feel reasonably comfortable that this is going to be open.
And I'll just ask a question about the guardrails. That was obviously before my time, so I don't really have a lot of detail on that. But
Yeah, so the design is still being finalized. I know the team will assess it, and if they find, without knowing kind of the side slopes being proposed for this new culvert, because obviously that drives the length of the culvert that we would need to be able to put in place. If we determine as part of that work that putting up guardrails is cheaper than extending the side slopes, because often those are a product of each other, not to get into too much detail. But effectively, if we have shorter or more steeper side slopes, we have to use guardrail. If it's more flatter and there's more runoff space, we perhaps don't need to. It really depends on the geometry of the crossing and a lot of different things. So all that's being worked on. If we need to put guardrails in, we'll put guardrails in.
and the last one, just on the traffic, I think I kind of got this answer because I know they've been installed, and I did a walk with the community, and they were maybe looking for some other placements on things. But is that still, we're going to assess how it goes and then look at those options? Is that still where it's at?
Councillor Clark, it's Caitlin Zarabeski with Parks and Road Services. So yes, we'll continue to monitor. We have the speed monitoring in place as well as some of the collection data. We will, once school starts and once construction starts, we'll continue to monitor. If we need to do additional changes with either what's in place or add in other features, we will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Okay, I'll start with a broad question and then I'll go into specifics. You said that there's insurance claims that you're making on some of these impacts, and I just wanted to know, are we anticipating premium increases that will need to be considered in the next 4-year budget as a result of all of these insurance claims?
We have Manage a COE online from our insurance and claims management section.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So with respect to premium, we have a couple of strategies to work through, like the restructuring of the program, like through potential deductible change, etc. But definitely the recent damages to the facilities will be a key negotiation points, and we are anticipating premium increases, but we have plans to minimize it.
When do you think we'll know the scope of like any changes in premiums? Because I just know that it's definitely become something that's come up as a surprise in some of our budgeting in the past with like WCB premiums going up, and that wasn't forecasted. So I just want to, that's why this is kind of something that flagged for me.
Oh, for sure. Actually, our renewal is Q1 of next year.
Okay.
We've already locked in the premium up to May 1st of next year. And the bulk of the negotiations are happening in February, March of next year, but we're proactively planning to reach out to a number of markets to introduce more competition, but definitely the trending of the losses has been a key concern for sure. But one of the things that are very important is for us to show that we are mitigating, we have plans in terms of prevention, and some of the unforeseen extreme weather events is part of like the reason we purchase insurance. But we have strategies in place, hopefully to minimize it, but we can provide an update in Q1 of next year as we get closer.
Okay. No, that's helpful. And any updates on Peter Hemingway? And like I understand there's like obviously some long-term work that needs to be done to mitigate this from happening again. That's what it sounds like to me. But we're trying to get it open as fast as possible so that it can be used in the short term.
Correct. And so teams between facility maintenance services and city operations, as well as within community services, so Roger Gemini's group and our team, as well, which by extension includes the contractor who worked on the rehab and our architectural team and their engineering consultants. We got a lot of people poking around at this. First priority is getting it open. And we don't want to have the immediate recurrence that we had, because we did reopen it once and then it flooded again. So I think we've learned from that. We know where the source of entry is. We're trying to address that first. And then at the same time, in parallel to that, Pascal's team is leading an investigation more broadly into kind of the network that's happening.
So no date is known as of yet, but as soon as you know, I will know. And
Correct.
therefore community will know.
We will share that with council as soon
Okay.
as we know.
Okay. Councilor Clark?
Yeah, just going back to the presentation, just to the West Valley LRT. So if I'm hearing this correctly, we still think MIP is on track for the road and the track subgrade work by the end of the year? Is that correct?
We're still assessing that right now, Councillor Clark. The MIP is currently on track on 102nd Avenue, but because of the weather, they have had to direct resources from elsewhere on the project to stay on track with that. So we think there may be some impacts in West Edmonton, but we're still working through that with them.
Okay, and then for Wellington Bridge, I think I heard the sequence of opening for this. Are we going to do the bike pedestrian lane first, then the ravine trail, and then vehicle traffic?
Yeah, so very similar to what I shared with you with Horseshoe Creek. The team has contingency plans in the event we have an early winter, for instance. So the goal of the team is to get everything done. Failing that, if we start kind of running into things, we've provided instructions to the contractor to prioritize certain scopes of work. So first is getting the road open, 4 lanes of traffic. Second, we know the bike lane on the north side is a key integral part of our bike network, and we need to get that open. Third priority is the south sidewalk, which didn't even exist before, so that is a new amenity for the public. And then the ravine underneath is the last. And that's largely because some of that too might be seasonal underneath. So the landscaping and some of the vegetation repair work that needs to happen. So for more broadly, the goal is still to get everything done this fall. But failing that, we have to prepare, as the industry members pointed out, we have to plan for, adverse weather. So if we have an early winter, we need to think of what those contingency plans look like.
And then lastly, just for the rec center, let me know when I can start the 365 countdown clock on the website. But I'm hearing that might be soon.
Yeah, we received really good news. We wanted to make sure that was included in the presentation because the teams now are trying to, it's not often that we have the privilege of being able to prepare for something being done early. So we're working together with community services to get that done.
And Councillor Clark, I do want to manage expectations. We don't perfectly finish construction and then open, right? So there is a period of time, to my colleagues in community services, where they have their staff and training and getting the facility ready from the operational point of view. So we were providing information on the construction completion timeline, and we need to follow up with community services on when they'll have it open.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So I want to talk about another one. So I'd asked this of EPCOR. A few of my constituents had flagged for me that the dry pond at 146th Street was not filling at all. And yet Yellowhead was flooding, especially in that area, in that section between 156 and St. Albert Trail. And when I asked EPCOR about it, they said that it was a city project and that the EPCOR had identified deficiencies that hadn't been rectified yet. And so I just want to hear your side of the story. I debated whether I even asked this question, but I do want to know, how long from when we identify deficiencies are we getting those deficiencies fixed? And what do you think do you think that having that dry pond actually activated would have mitigated?
Right. So short answer is I was at Utility Committee on Monday, so I heard those questions, and I followed up with Craig and EPCOR after those comments were made. So a typical linear construction project has a 2-year warranty. So at the completion of construction, we call it the construction completion, and the certificates issued, CCC, and then there's essentially a warranty period. On a vertical construction, typically it's a year. On horizontal construction, just because of some of the underground work that happens, it's usually a longer period. It's usually 2 years. So on our Yellowhead project, all of our warranties are typically 2 years. So we have entered into, we've had a construction completion certificate issued for that work. And that means that the asset is turned over to the city for operation or to EPCOR. So effectively, at that point, the facility is in operation, but we're monitoring it for deficiencies. And there are noted deficiencies, but I would suggest that those deficiencies didn't interfere with the operation of that pond. It doesn't mean that they're not important and we need to address those working with EPCOR, but the pond is operating. And we did see, and EPCOR shared that on Monday, that during one of the flood events, it did activate and there was water in the pond. It was one of the things we wanted to know because we've invested a lot of money as part of that project in that pond. So it is working, but the purpose and use of that pond and how it fits in the broader network, I'm a little bit unclear. EPCOR would have to answer that specifically, but I understand it is a surge pond. So it's only once after every upstream or downstream pipe is filled, it would activate. So it's one of the very last things within the network that would fill.
Okay, no, that's helpful information, and I did want to ask that publicly because to follow up the public questions and information at utility. That's it for this one, and this is an information report, so nothing to receive here, so we can move on, I think. And just, you know, again, while we don't speak to information reports, thank you for being proactive, thank you for bringing this forward, thank you for keeping us informed, and please continue to keep us informed as you know more. We will now move on to 7.3, Public Art to Enhance Edmonton's Public Realm Policy. So do we switch out of the delegation? Or is it the same folks? Okay. Do you have a presentation?
We do not.
Okay. No presentation on that one, but we do have a speaker. So I'll see if that speaker is available online. Eric Estrada, are you with us?
Hello, yes, I am. I was trying to be.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're on the public art policy, so this is your time to speak, and you'll have 3 minutes. Which is a bit shorter than you're used to. I apologize, but
no, I've been following. Don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you for the time.
Okay.
I'll be as concise as I can. I think this changing on language shows the need for investment on the art infrastructure that we have in our city. I think it's a great step forward to allow for more flexibility. I am just disappointed that within the time that it had to review, administration didn't dive into more. We could have included more language about the economic development that this infrastructure, art and cultural infrastructure brings to our city. And I am disappointed that that wasn't really included, although we do say that some of the principles there are about economic development as well. No business improvement areas that host our main streets were engaged on this conversation. And in Alberta Avenue specifically, we have a lot of public art. We have beautiful concrete benches with 53 art pieces that were submitted fairly 2008, if I remember correctly, or 2003. If I don't know. I don't have my notes here. It's been a long day, as I imagine all of you. are thinking right now. But we have a lot of beautiful art in the avenue, and I don't think the maintenance of it has been really considered on in the operations budget as needed, as is actually needed, and the usage of the spaces and the public realm and how sometimes it's also abused wasn't a factor on budgeting considerations. And I think that's something we can address at the root cause when we are thinking about infrastructure projects moving forward. Overall, I think it is a great step forward, start changing language. I would love to see a little bit more of engagement on the economic priorities as we face more demand from our city administration and all the other organizations that we're trying to just make our city beautiful, welcoming, and attractive to everybody. That will be it for now for me. I do want to say that I am enjoying my bike line here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Speaker Estrada? There are no questions of you at this time, but again, just as I've expressed, thank you for rejoining and joining us in your evening. Appreciate it. And now we will go to questions of the public art policy. And it will be.
I selected the item. I have no questions, Madam Chair.
Did you want to move the recommendation in the reports?
So moved.
And you have that up there. So do you want to just read that in, Councillor Jans?
I move that revised Council Policy Charlie 458 Foxtrot Public Art to enhance Edmonton's public realm as set out in Attachment 1 of the August 26, 2026 Infrastructure Services Report, ISO 3596, be approved.
Thank you. And that's a recommendation to go to City Council. Correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I did have a question. Did you have an introduction? I'm guessing no. And no questions, right?
No.
Okay. I just said, like, I feel like really silly that I was like, I read this change many a times, and I don't understand what it does. Like, what do we have now? What does the policy do now, and what will this policy with this change in wording lead to?
So, Councillor Rutherford, the policy was transformed in 2021 when we moved from the percent for art policy to the public art policy. And at that point, the public art reserve was created, and the funding of the public art reserve moved from being attached to the capital program or to the capital budget and moved into the operating budget. At the time, there was a request to include the language that the minimum amount would still be 1% of eligible capital projects to offer continuity between the percent for art and the public art policy. As we reviewed this policy for its 4 years and in advance of the next budget cycle, we wanted to clarify that we have moved away from funding art on the basis of a percent of the capital program, and it really is a decision of council through the operating budget as to what the amount will be allocated to art. But we added we rephrased the commitment to maintain a minimum baseline in the reserve that would allow for the administration and the conservation work that the Edmonton Arts Council continues to do, and to ensure the long-term sustainability of the public art program. So essentially, the wording is to clarify what has been in place for the last 4 years in advance of the next budget cycle and its deliberation. And so that council will have clarity that you'll see that how we bring forward the request for funding for art will be only in the operating budget, and it will reflect that commitment of historical investment and collection maintenance.
Yeah. And then, so what, I guess, because the policy isn't creating the details of the reserve, like other reserves that go below the minimum balance, is there like a replenishment, like plan that has to be created, like, or is that just, am I too far ahead?
The Public Art Reserve, I would have to confirm with our colleagues from finance, but I don't believe that it has the same level of requirement as does like the Financial Stabilization Reserve, which has that requirement. In this case, it would be, the policy is a commitment from council and administration, and so from that perspective, it would be through the operating budget that council would meet its commitment to the policy.
I'm gonna need another round. Does nobody else have questions? So, I mean, the beauty of like the 1% of cap, and I know this is going back before the 4 years, the beauty of that was that, you know, art was just like a standard piece of, we were basically acknowledging art as a basic piece of infrastructure in our city. I didn't like that they were coupled with like the specific project, so then you'd have to have the art on Yellowhead Trail instead of where people would actually like engage with it. So I understand some of those changes. But while you're saying it's a commitment of administration and council, we can't make a commitment beyond like what, when push comes to shove, what is approved or not approved at budget. And now this makes this feel like it's a service package that can be pulled out for debate, that otherwise it would have just been a standard amount.
So for clarity, it's actually included in the base budget and it's not presented as a service package.
Okay.
If that offers
but what about any
reassurance
further
of kind of the
increases?
level.
Because like that's the thing is like the 1% budget would always increase proportionate to the capital budget. Do you see what I'm saying? But is this one stagnant?
So at the thought behind it is that we would take into account the increased level of, so our collection continues to grow and it ages. And so it's going to be like any of our renewal, it increases in its requirement for funding. Additionally, inflation, all of these things affect the cost of our conservation efforts and what we can do with the limited dollars that are available. And so from that perspective, there would need to be an increase to reflect maintaining the level of service or the level of conservation that we can do. And we've been working with the Arts Council to understand how we can do that. At this point in time, what we've captured is that the operating budget is paying for the maintenance and the conservation and the transformational projects. Yellowhead, LRT, all of our rec centers have been contributing to the increase of the collection and the addition of new art. And that will continue for 27-30. As we continue to move forward, it will be, we will need to determine what is the capital. Like, we would still be looking to the capital program to kind of inform what those opportunities are and how far and how fast council wants to go with increasing the arts collection while maintaining it and doing the conservation through the base budget.
Okay.
So,
and just my last question in my dying seconds, the Arts Council is supportive of this and that you've worked in collaboration with them?
yes, absolutely. And Renee Williams is on the call if you have any questions for her.
I don't have time, but I appreciate Renee being here. I thank you so much. That's it for me. And we've got the motion on the floor. Anybody that would like to speak to the motion on the floor? No? Okay. Councillor Jans, do you have anything to close?
I want to talk for a moment about what art is. No, I'm just kidding. I'm good. Let's vote for it.
Okay. I was ready for it. I was ready for a soliloquy on art. Okay, please vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Jans. We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. And now we will move on to item 7.4, Climate Resiliency Policy C627A Review. And this looks like there is a change in delegation. Sorry, please go ahead with your presentation.
Sure. Good evening. We do have a presentation, but for the benefit of time where we are in the agenda, we can go straight to speakers, but we do have a presentation if that's desired.
I think given the number of speakers and interest on this topic, I do think presentation would be beneficial. And yes, so I would say yes to a presentation.
Excellent. Okay, good evening. We're here to present the review of the city's climate resilience policy, C627A, along with recommended revisions. As global and local best practices evolve, our tools and our approach to climate action must evolve with them. The proposed revisions incorporate a data-driven approach that will strengthen our ability to proactively manage climate risks while ensuring our decisions remain fiscally responsible and focused on delivering effective services. Ultimately, this policy is about building a city that is affordable, safe, and resilient for all Edmontonians. Next slide, please. As Edmonton grows, the decisions we make today about our civic buildings and community preparedness will directly shape our city's long-term financial and physical resilience. When we build climate-ready infrastructure, we're taking a smart long-term approach to growth. In practice, this means ensuring our community buildings are durable and energy efficient. Additionally, it means thinking strategically about green infrastructure, like the trees we plant that can naturally cool our neighborhoods and help manage stormwater. A thoughtful and balanced approach safeguards our essential municipal services and protects our public assets. Next slide, please. The city's 2026 Corporate Strategic Risk Profile identified climate-related risk as the risk with the largest increase. Climate change risks are no longer just strategic future concerns. They are a present-day safety and operational consideration. The private sector also recognizes the elevated risk. Climate-related insurance claims are steadily rising, with Alberta rates increasing roughly 390% since 2005. The disruption from climate hazards are projected to impact our local economy and the health of Edmontonians. Estimates suggest climate hazards could reduce Edmonton's annual GDP by an average of $2 billion by the 2040s and cause an additional 22,000 health incidents per year by the 2050s. Next slide. Climate action is evolving globally, driven by science, technologies, and changing policies. Administration is bringing forward a number of updates to the city's climate resilience policy, C627A, to calibrate and modernize our approach. Firstly, a community adaptation target is being introduced. This new target allows us to track climate-related risk at a citywide level. This change is a direct response to the recommendation of the City Auditor's 2024 Environmental and Climate Governance Audit, ensuring we have the right metrics in place to monitor a critically important risk. Second, the report proposes adjusting our approach to new city buildings. Designing low-emission, climate-ready infrastructure often requires higher upfront capital costs, but it also delivers longer-term benefits. To ensure we're maximizing taxpayer value, we are incorporating a sustainable return on investment threshold. This will guide city design and construction decisions to find the optimal balance between climate resilience and capital investment. Additionally, clarification is added to the policy regarding exceptions for new city buildings. And finally, the requirement for a council advisory committee on climate resilience is being removed in alignment with the Energy Transition and Climate Resilience Committee's sunsetting earlier this year. I'll now pass the presentation to Chandra Tamers, Director of Environment and Climate Resilience, to outline the proposed adaptation targets.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So the proposed adaptation targets track citywide climate-related risk. And we really understand this risk in three ways. So the first is climate hazards, right? So these are the specific events or trends that we're facing. A recent example, everything that we've been talking about today, Council's been talking about today, the rain we experienced in June. It's officially now the wettest June in Edmonton's recorded history. So that's the hazard. The second component is exposure. And this captures what might be impacted or affected by that hazard. So this could be people, infrastructure, buildings, ecosystem habitat. So for example, in June, Edmonton saw trails closed, severe erosion that caused a number of bridges to be closed, and a surge in insurance claims. And then finally, the third component is vulnerability. So this is the human and structural dimension, how easily a neighborhood could be harmed, and importantly, its capacity to manage that harm or recover from it. So these impacts or these events are not theoretical. We heard today, even from the construction industry, that these events are measured in significant economic and operational costs. So for example, the storms events in May and June resulted in $406 million in insured losses for the Edmonton region. Next slide, please. So Edmonton's more than a collection of roads, infrastructure, and planning documents. We are a city defined by our diverse stories, cultures, and people. Edmonton is a mosaic made up of all of these things, a place where people build their lives and grow their families. And this diversity translates directly into over 380 unique neighborhoods in Edmonton, each with its own unique characteristics, strengths, and needs. These unique characteristics also mean that each neighborhood could have different climate risks and vulnerabilities. Administration is presenting a new adaptation target based on evaluating over 380 neighborhoods for climate risks, looking at 82 different indicators in each neighborhood. Collectively, those neighborhoods make up the larger risk profile for the whole city. Each neighborhood is a piece of that overall climate mosaic for Edmonton. Next slide, please. Growing climate risks will impact all of Edmonton, everyone, everywhere, though the impacts might not be the same in every neighborhood or for every hazard. There are risks, though, in all neighborhoods. So climate change is impacting, it's also impacting the backbone of the community, the core services on which Edmontonians rely, from public services and infrastructure like bridges and roads and urban parks to emergency management services. The risks are real and the consequences can be significant. So administration's new climate adaptation target is designed to reduce risk in those highest risk areas of the city and across the whole city. The target is to reduce the number of neighborhoods in the highest risk category to 0 by 2050 and to reduce citywide risk by 10% by 2050. These targets are important steps in building Edmonton's resilience and safeguarding the whole community. I'll now ask Giovanni Bruno, our senior engineer, to walk us through the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you. Next slide, please. At the inaugural Infrastructure Committee meeting in June of last year, Council gave clear direction to find ways to lower the capital costs of climate-resilient building design elements. Administration has worked with experts, such as the former Energy Transition and Climate Resilience Committee, to find ways to lower costs while still trying to achieve the City of Edmonton's overall commitment to lead climate solutions. However, it is a complex space, and there could be building designs that won't achieve a carbon-neutral, climate-resilient design based on the updates to this policy. City buildings make up about 47% of our corporate emissions, and these buildings are also facing new and growing climate risks. Buildings are an important piece of the city's efforts to lower greenhouse gas emissions and provide climate-ready services. Administration has found ways to reduce capital costs, but there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Different building types, whether an administrative office or a fire station, have different pathways and challenges for reaching carbon neutrality. Next slide, please. The updated policy incorporates a sustainable return on investment, or SROI, approach to evaluate life cycle benefits, including environmental and social outcomes alongside financial impacts. Projects will apply climate resilient requirements only up to the point of achieving a positive SROI. This provides flexibility based on the complexity of the building type. When a positive SRI is not feasible, the project will proceed without those requirements. An SROI captures a range of project impacts beyond direct financial impacts. It considers the wider social and environmental impacts of project decisions, such as greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution health impacts. By adopting SROI analysis, the city will prioritize climate investments that maximize long-term impact and fiscal efficiency. These policy adjustments help manage fiscal constraints, but we risk locking in emissions. To achieve our long-term commitments, we may be required to look at alternative solutions, such as purchasing renewable energy or offsetting. Next slide, please. If Council approves the policy, administration is ready to move from planning to action. For buildings, administration will take two approaches. First, for projects currently in design, we'll continue to identify cost-saving opportunities. The second approach is looking forward. The new C627B policy will ensure that all future designs are guided by a sustainable return on investment threshold. For the new adaptation target, administration is committed to transparency. Administration will work to publish the neighborhood risk profiles so that all communities have the information they need to better understand their local risks and take steps to improve our collective resilience. However, targets are only meaningful when supported by concrete actions. On September 2nd, administration will bring our climate priorities to Executive Committee, which includes an update on greenhouse gas emissions. These actions will outline the top climate priorities. Council can then decide through budget the extent and pace of implementation. Next slide. Thank you, and we would be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And we now have some speakers. I'm going to just do a double check. I'm guessing all of them are virtual if they're here. Mike Melrose.
Yep.
Perfect. Dan Nielsen.
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't need to do a presentation. I can just answer questions as needed.
Sure, it's totally up to you. We'll see who's all here and we'll come back. You can decide then. Jesse Watson.
Good evening.
Heather McKenzie.
Present.
Thank you. Preet Kang.
Hello.
Hello. Raf Tenderenda.
Yes, here.
You think I would have gotten your name by now?
Right? I thought so.
Sorry, Raf. Lori Lynn Gregoire.
I'm here.
Perfect. And Joshua Buck.
I'm speaking instead of Joshua Buck. Mariam Tulili.
Just like I'll just go to the. Do we need?
Yeah, we probably need a name, and if you'd like to accept a new person or you'd vote on it like you would
I
the
think I
original
mean.
list. Okay.
Just a sec. Yeah. Yeah, we'll move to hear from that speaker in place of Joshua. Please vote on hearing from that speaker.
If we could just ask the speaker to email.
I think it's just in the, is that your name in the, on your video?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
M-A-R-I, Miriam, can you say your last?
Jalili.
Jaliji.
Jalili.
Jaliji. Did I say it right?
It's Lily at the end.
Oh, Lily.
L-I-L. Anyway, no problem. It's not that
Can
important.
we, either way, we can, do we have that motion? Okay, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. Okay, sorry for the formalities, but that's what we need to do to have it on public record. So I will, everybody's here. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening and coming back to be heard. So we'll start with Mike. You have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Mike Melross, Vice President of the Alberta EcoTrust Foundation. Alberta EcoTrust operates Edmonton's Low Carbon Cities Canada Centre, Alberta's Retrofit Accelerator, and we convene Alberta's Emissions Neutral Buildings Information Exchange, which is an industry capacity building organization that's focused on low carbon construction. First, we believe that Edmonton cannot divert from the path to carbon neutrality as committed to in its community energy transition strategy. And civic buildings alone, as we've heard, are nearly 50% of the city's corporate emissions. So striving for high performance standards really must continue. And the pursuit of other measures should also continue. That said, we understand why the SROI is introduced here as a tool. The SROI will allow the city to evaluate societal costs and benefits, which are really important, beyond the building itself, thereby considering the overall public good in addition to financial viability. And this, formally evaluates the trade-offs, the real-world trade-offs. We believe that the ongoing use of this tool is a prudent, replicable, and defensible way to keep leading the market in high-performance, climate-resilient buildings by creating an evidence-based lens that acknowledges other policy outcomes. And for us, this really isn't theoretical. Through our Retrofit Accelerator, which we've operated for the last 3 years, we've learned this lesson as well. And decarbonization is absolutely the destination, but it is clear the pathway to decarbonization to be viable has to be staged and phased, reflecting economic realities and the pace of change that the market can absorb. Building owners who try to do everything are often paralyzed into doing nothing at all. Through our NBICS program, we work directly with the private sector, and we know the industry, including owner and operators, want to move more in this direction. They're seeing that potential long-term cost effectiveness of these investments. However, the reality is the market readiness in Alberta is still nascent, and the leadership the city can provide is very necessary. Because this climate resilient policy does not just influence civic accommodations, it actually sets a bar that leads the transformation of our design and construction sector here in Edmonton. But we need to learn from what you're doing for this to be meaningful to the market. So we ask the city to commit to publishing the data and analysis behind each of these decisions, not just the outcomes, so that we can see how the thinking has changed the decision. We also believe adoption of the climate resilience target is also a great start. And from our analysis, the target is aligned with how other Canadian municipalities are tackling this and addressing tracking resilience. Really, what we can assert is that climate action at its heart is economic development. And a city that can pursue these things becomes a marketable city that attracts business and talent and into the future low carbon economy. So we ask that council and committee support what's being proposed here, and we look forward to learning from the data collected from this work and sharing the learnings industry-wide. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Nielsen?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, prepared to answer questions as
Yes.
needed.
So anyways, questions. Okay, Jesse Watson?
Great. Hey, guys. My name is Jesse Watson. I'm here today to formally urge the committee to actually reject admin's recommendation and vote no on improving the policy change. I fundamentally believe that whatever we put into the environment must be managed and offset in a real sustainable way. If we pollute a river, we have a basic duty to clean it up. But as a city, we have to be realistic about what a municipal government can actually achieve, rather than piling symbolic costs onto local taxpayers without fixing an underlying problem. Look at the international policies. In the UK, aggressive net zero mandates surged industrial electricity prices 46% on international averages, driving steel production down 46% and costing the economy billions. They didn't eliminate carbon. They priced out local industry and outsourced manufacturing to China, where China generates the UK's entire annual carbon footprint in less than 12 days. We see the same disconnect locally with our single-use item bylaw. Plastic bags distribution dropped 80%, but that's common sense when you ban something. Where's the actual quantified environmental outcome? The city hasn't measured life cycle carbon savings or processing efficiency. In fact, takeout container waste surged over 75%. We forced citizens to pay extra for paper bags that take more energy to produce with zero proof it cleaned up our environment. Now we see the exact same pattern with building policies. We build fire halls with extensive solar arrays that are sometimes sit disconnected. We spend millions on internal climate initiatives like Century Place, where a secondary mechanical system was installed years ago to hit some kind of environmental metric, yet we are still running the original equipment. So we're running two mechanical systems at the same time in our biggest building. We make these costly decisions, but we never turn or return back to take accountability for our own failures and policy. Most concerning today, however, is how this policy shift is being justified. This report relies on a survey of just 1,000 people in a couple focus groups to declare, and I quote, 77% of Edmontonians support action. That 77% isn't Edmonton. It's 772 respondents. To frame a sample size of 700-ish people as a sweeping democratic mandate to shift municipal policy is completely irrelevant. Furthermore, the report buries the fact that 42% actively oppose paying a tax levy for climate action, while introducing an ROI calculation that their own report admits relies on, and I quote, subjective methodologies. Instead of approving this report, I urge a member of this committee to move to refer it back to administration, direct staff to hold ward-by-ward town halls, partnering with key community leads, and present hard data on real-world outcomes, like the proven financial impacts of an emission-zero bus barn, before asking taxpayers to support it. If administration is truly confident that 700 people represent a genuine consensus, put major decisions like a net zero bus barn to a direct public vote, put it on the ballot, and prove us wrong. Please reject this report, table that referral motion. Thank you.
Heather McKenzie? Heather McKenzie?
I'm Heather McKenzie. Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, you just.
Can you hear me?
You're a little bit delayed, so I was a bit of my lag, but go for it.
Okay, if I'm all right now, then I'll get started. My name's Heather McKenzie, and I'm the Executive Director of Solar Alberta. Solar Alberta is a nonprofit society dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. Our membership includes over 177 individual solar enthusiasts and microgenerators, as well as over 110 solar-related businesses. We've been in operation since 1991, and we have over 36,500 followers. I'm here today to speak in opposition to the new version of the climate resilience policy for completely different reasons than the previous speaker. Rather than watering down the policy further, we believe significant improvements need to be made. As outlined on pages 63 and 66 in the report, the new policy focus on needing to ensure a positive return on investment enables the City of Edmonton to ignore buildings that are heavy emitters, locking in high emissions for the lifetime of the building, or downloading significant retrofit costs onto future Edmontonians just to save a few bucks today. Although there is nothing, there's nothing in the document that alludes to the Solar Ready bylaw, which we have been told for well over 2 years is under development. A Solar Ready bylaw is extremely low-hanging fruit to support the goal of emissions neutral buildings in Edmonton. The Solar Ready bylaw is taking too long. We urge the city to move quicker on this item, as it is a wonderful way to save Edmontonians money and will not cost the city anything. The final point I'd like to make today is that the proposed new process of needing to ensure a positive return on investment will be unnecessarily complex and will take longer than a typical cost-benefit analysis. This unnecessarily long and complex new process means that the City of Edmonton will waste time and money on a new process that could be spent on retrofits and will concurrently miss meeting our 50% emissions reduction target by 2030. This council has given multiple mandates for its administration to be ambitious with respect to climate action, both from a climate adaptation standpoint and also from an emissions reduction perspective. Given the number of delays that we have seen on emission neutral buildings and the reduced ambition that we are seeing time and time again in this policy and other recommendations coming forward, It is increasingly feeling like there are some within the administration who are intentionally working against the direction of our council in an undemocratic way. Thank you.
Thank you. Preet Kang, please go ahead.
Good evening. Of course. Good evening. My name is Preet Kang, and I'm speaking on behalf of Solar Alberta as well as the Alberta Environmental Network. I want to begin by recognizing the importance of the new community adaptation target. Edmonton is already experiencing the impacts of a changing climate, and strengthening our ability to prepare is necessary. But adaptation and emissions reduction have to move forward together. That is why I'm concerned about how sustainable return on investment, or SROI, is being incorporated into the revised policy. The report notes that buildings account for approximately 47% of the city's corporate GHG emissions, and that emissions neutral buildings are critical to Edmonton's energy transition goals. Yet under the proposed policy, climate resilience requirements would only be incorporated to the point where a positive SROI is demonstrated. For more challenging building types, that could mean implementing only some requirements. The report itself identifies the risk. This approach could lock in emissions for the lifetime of a building, making them more difficult and expensive to eliminate later. That is particularly concerning when the city remains committed to reducing emissions by 50% by 2030 and becoming carbon neutral by 2050. So my primary recommendation is this: use SROI to determine the most cost-effective way to achieve Edmonton's climate objectives, not to determine whether those objectives should be achieved. The report's hypothetical fire station example shows why this matters. Design changes reduce C627 related costs by approximately 1.1 million, nearly 30%, while still maintaining emissions neutrality. That is the type of optimization we should pursue before lowering environmental outcomes. Where emissions neutrality genuinely cannot be achieved, it should remain an exception. Council should know what emissions are being left behind, the long-term impact, the cost of addressing them later, and how the city intends to address that emissions gap elsewhere. I am also concerned that the revised policy removes a requirement for an independent advisory committee to council following the dissolution of the Energy Transition and Climate Resilience Committee. I would ask committee what governance mechanism will replace the ETCRC as a council-appointed source of community public interest and technical expertise. I support the overall direction of the review, but I do not support recommending approval of C627B as currently written without amendments that ensure SROI is used to optimize how the city achieves its climate objectives rather than as a reason to lower those objectives, that preserves an independent council-appointed source of climate expertise following the dissolution of the ETCRC, and that require transparent reporting whenever climate requirements are not met. I also want to recognize SEEP as an important example of practical climate action that helps Edmontonians invest in energy efficiency, resilience, and renewable energy. Finally, I encourage the city to move forward with the Solar Ready bylaw. Designing new buildings so solar can be installed more easily in the future is a low-cost way to avoid expensive retrofits later. I would encourage the committee to ask administration for a clear timeline for bringing those requirements forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we will go to Raf.
Good evening again, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Raf Kendarenda. I'm the president of the Big Lake Community League. I'd like to speak specifically about the climate prepared infrastructure and proactive risk management commitments in the proposed climate resilience policy. The policy talks about climate prepared infrastructure, reducing vulnerability, and proactively identifying risks. I strongly support that direction. The failure at Horseshoe Creek and 137th Avenue this summer provides an important real-world example of why infrastructure risks need to be considered beyond simply who owns a particular asset. The culvert at Horseshoe Creek is an EPCOR drainage asset, but when that asset failed, the consequences extended directly to city infrastructure, including 137th Ave, the multi-use pathway, and the pedestrian crossing. That demonstrates how interconnected these systems are. The policy proposes using climate risk and vulnerability assessments to guide infrastructure investment and renewal decisions. So I would respectfully ask, when the city assesses risk to its infrastructure, are risks originating from interconnected EPCOR infrastructure being captured as well? If not, I believe they should be. I would encourage the city and EPCOR to develop a risk-based inventory of drainage infrastructure where failure could significantly affect city-owned assets. That could include undersized or vulnerable culverts like 137th Ave and Horseshoe Creek, storm and sanitary main lines and manholes, and also trunk lines, where failures could affect roads, bridges, buildings, sidewalks, multi-use pathways, and other significant infrastructure. That does not mean every drainage asset represents the same level of risk. A risk-based approach would identify locations where the likelihood and consequences are the highest, allowing inspections, preventive maintenance, rehab, and replacement to be prioritized accordingly. Horseshoe Creek should be used as a case study and a learning opportunity. We have now seen what can happen when the failure of EPCOR drainage asset affects an entire transportation corridor. So the question I would leave to the committee, where else in Edmonton could this happen? Are we identifying these locations early enough, particularly where EPCOR utility infrastructure and city infrastructure are connected? I recognize that the city is already moving forward on proactive risk assessment and considering the full cycle costs and benefits of infrastructure investments. My request is that the city also considers risk that or originate outside the city ownership, where the consequences of failure could fall heavily on city roads, city-owned buildings, bridges, and pathways. Horseshoe Creek gives us a real example of why that matters. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will go to Lori Lynn.
Thank you. My name is Lori Lynn Gregoire. I'm the development manager at the University of Alberta Properties Trust. I'm speaking today on behalf of Build Edmonton Metro, which represents more than 500 companies involved in residential, commercial, and industrial development across Edmonton region. Build supports the proposed updates to climate resilience policy C627A, particularly the shift toward greater flexibility and the use of a sustainable return on investment, or the SROI approach. We believe this approach will help the city focus investments where they deliver the greatest overall benefit. Rather than relying on one prescribed solution for every project, the SOR framework allows decision makers to evaluate climate, social, financial outcomes, and select measures that provide the best value for a specific project. We also support the principle of right-sizing infrastructure and climate resilience investments. From both a fiscal and environmental perspective, it's important that infrastructure is scaled appropriately. When investments are aligned with project needs, we can reduce unnecessary costs, improve long-term efficiency, and direct limited public and private resources toward actions that achieve the greatest impact. The report provides a strong example of this. Optimizing the design of that hypothetical fire station, the city was able to reduce policy-related construction costs by $1.1 million, while still maintaining emissions-neutral outcomes. This demonstrates that flexibility and outcome-focused decision-making can achieve environmental objectively cost-effectively. We also encourage Council to recognize that policy adoption is only the first step to achieve the desired outcome. Climate resilience measures must be practical and economically achievable within the realities of development and redevelopment. Requirements that are overly prescriptive or disproportionate to project circumstances can increase costs and delay investment, and in some cases prevent projects from moving forward altogether. When that happens, it becomes more difficult to achieve both the climate and the broader city building objectives. The proposed SORI approach is a positive step because it allows requirements to reflect the unique characteristics of each project while still supporting the city's climate goals. This approach also aligns with feedback received through the city's engagement process, including feedback from Build members, which emphasize the importance of flexibility and practical implementation. Build supports the proposed direction and encourages the city to continue to take a pragmatic, outcome-based approach as this policy is implemented. We believe Edmonton can advance climate resilience while also supporting housing supply, redevelopment, investment, and economic growth. Achieving that balance will require ambition, affordability, practicality, and a continued focus on measurable results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to Miriam. And I did just receive clarification from the clerks that they did receive an email. They just hadn't seen it yet, saying that you could speak on behalf of Joshua. So just is your preference to have your name registered or to speak on behalf? How would you like that recorded in the public minutes?
I doesn't matter. I can have my name registered.
Okay, great. Thank you. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Mariam Jalili. I work as an architect on net zero and energy efficient buildings and projects in Alberta. And I want to appreciate that climate adaptation is being prioritized and extended to neighborhoods in this policy, building resiliency into the infrastructure, preparing for floods, heat waves, and extreme weather that we're already experiencing. This is an essential work, and it's encouraging to see that move forward. But I also want to caution that adaptation is only half of the picture. As we strengthen our resilience measures, we cannot afford to let climate mitigation slip down the priority list. Without mitigation, we are just building higher walls against the changing climate and not addressing the root cause. This matters directly for how we treat our city-owned building. It can be tempting, especially in a tight budget year, to shave 10 or 15% off a project's upfront cost by pulling back on environmental performances. But those are false savings. A building constructed to a lower standard becomes a retrofit liability, and even in some cases, as we see, can become stranded assets entirely. This locks in a level of emission that persists for the lifetime of the building and is far more costly. A cost that taxpayers will have to pay. We also work in retrofitting existing buildings, and we see how complex this work is. It takes a long time with a lot of risks on cost increases when you're trying to retrofit buildings. And there is already a big stock of existing buildings that need to be retrofitted, so we don't need to add to that. It is interesting to see that the policy proposes to add an SRI procedure into the process to reflect the full picture. It is important to reflect environmental costs and build it into the analysis, as well as cost of carbon and social costs. But at the same time, I want to caution to over-engineering this policy. I don't think simplicity and emission neutral requirement need to be in tension. The key is separating the outcome from the mission, from the method. Emissions neutral should stay a firm requirement for every new city building stated clearly in the policy itself, and not something that SRI can decide away. The SRI should be used to determine the most cost-effective path, and not if the outcome applies at all. The report mentions that they did find savings, 30% savings that can be achieved while still achieving emissions neutrality in the building. So keeping the process simple with a fixed social cost of carbon, pre-approved technology pathways, so it functions as a quick screening tool, not a custom study for every project. And exceptions should stay reserved for generally atypical buildings as originally intended, rather than becoming an routine off-ramp.
That's okay. We're doing a bit shorter today, but thank you so much. And now we will go to questions of our public speakers. Does anyone have any questions to our members of the public? Councillor Salvador, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to the speakers for being here and staying so late with us. Yeah, maybe I'll direct this to Speaker Mackenzie, and others could potentially jump in as well. I guess the thing that I'm also struggling with is like what the SROI methodology would be and what that would look like. Wondering if you can comment on that piece and I guess what you would expect to see.
Yeah, if you go in this direction, we'd expect to see a calculator, which would be a hell of a big job to produce. And I don't think you want to go there, but that's the expectation people would have. If you want to go that route, then you need a public calculator and you need all the data. And a lot of that data is going to be subjective. And ultimately, you're just getting away from the emissions neutral goal. I mean, ultimately here, I heard admins say they basically have shifted their language completely. They're just talking about low emissions. They're not talking about what council has directed them to do, which is emissions neutrality. So they've already shifted their language, which means they're shifting their ambition, which is really disappointing to hear. And yeah, you'd need to put a lot of work into creating a calculator for us, I think. I also just wanted to mention there was a comment about in the report about getting rid of the committee. I heard from a committee member recently who said, "Oh, it's okay because you have an emissions neutral building advisory group." I just want to make sure everyone here knows we meet once a year. I'm on that group. We don't make any decisions. We don't make any recommendations. We don't actually vote on anything, and we meet maybe once, max twice a year. So it is not a replacement for what you're losing today.
Thank you for that. And maybe just to Miriam as well, I know I wanted to get a few people's perspectives on this, just around SROI and what you would be expecting to see.
Yeah, SRI, I think, like Heather mentioned, this is a very new, complex process, and administration is already struggling trying to implement emissions neutral buildings. So keeping it simple, focused on the target is important. Also, making sure that the correct carbon costs are being accounted for, referencing federal costs in there and not artificial subjective costs.
Right. Okay. To Speaker Kang, to Preet. Yeah, thank you for being here. I think you raised a point around I'll say, how would I describe it? I had a note here around using the SROI to optimize climate objectives rather than using it as sort of a bar that is barely met. Is that, I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on that and kind of the directionality of expectations around this type of tool.
Sure, of course. I'll try to answer the best that I can. So there is a distinction that's pretty important. Using SROI to optimize climate objectives means the climate objective stays fixed, while SROI helps determine the best value way to achieve it. So that is different from using SROI as a pass-fail gate, which determines how much of the climate objective gets implemented. Reading the C627B approach, it looks like projects would incorporate requirements only to a point where a positive SROI is demonstrated. And again, for difficult building types, that means that the C627 requirements simply are not implemented.
Oh my gosh,
Does
I'm
that
way
answer
over
your
time.
question?
I'm so sorry.
No, I was just messaging the clerk saying to just redo your time because you're the only one on the list. If there was other people on the list, I would have stopped, but please continue.
Apologies. That was
with the second round. Yeah.
Thank you. And Preet, that was really helpful. So the language of sort of, or descriptor of using it as like a pass-fail gate versus ensuring that those climate objectives are actually fixed. That's really helpful and will inform some questions that I'll have of administration. I'm going to jump back to a different speaker, to Speaker Melross. Mike, are you there?
Yes.
Great. Can you elaborate on what you'd expect to see for published data and analysis behind each of the outcomes?
Yeah, I think with SROI, there are tools out there that we've been using ourselves, and Benefits by Econo Liner is one of them. In fact, the original lead silver policy, the city of Edmonton in 2011, used an SROI tool to arrive at that as being an optimal way of setting that policy. What I'd like to see are the assumptions behind it, the costing, and how it actually leads to the decision. So I agree that the SRI is just a tool, and you should have targets as well. You shouldn't move away from these carbon neutrality as the ultimate destination, but it does help you contextualize the project in terms of other policy objectives. And I'm actually fairly confident that when you do an SORI, you're going to see such outsized community benefits that for the most part, these projects will still hold their own and they'll show viability. So just ensuring that we see all of that decision-making process actually published so that the industry and the entire market can learn from this process.
Would you want to see the assumptions, costing, I guess the more detail around that decision-making process before a policy is approved?
I think that you'll probably want to see that as the projects come up. I think you should evaluate this policy again if it's not achieving the objectives. I think you're going to need real world though data to share across the industry. So I'd like to see the real world data.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. I'll direct my other questions to administration.
Thank you very much. So now we will turn to questions of administration. And please, I think Councillor Jan's actually selected this and he's on the board, so I'll go to him first for questions.
I do, may I, and thank you again to the speakers for their provocations. I guess first of all, just an easy one. Where's the solar ready bylaw at?
Councillor, so that is still a piece of work that is coming to committee. It's taken us a little bit longer to put that together before we bring it to Urban Planning Committee for a check-in and recommendation, and that's because we've been engaging with a consultant to cost out some of the options we're looking at so that we can provide committee with information around affordability impacts of any of the potential regulations. But we're looking at a early 2027 check-in with Urban Planning Committee with both the solar and the EV potential requirements.
Is one more, I imagine one would be more complex than the other. Is there no other way to bring that sooner? At least the solar part?
I don't think so, and it isn't necessarily easier when you look at the development forms that are allowed within the city in terms of singles and multis and different types of dwelling units, and working through the complexity of what regulations might look like for solar and EV. They're not simple.
Okay, I'd love to follow up offline about that. I'm very curious because the solar ready element is essentially just punching a hole, some wires and a plug, get it at the roof when it's ready, and you can hook up a solar array. I don't think we were mandating the roof must be tilted this way or that way or this degree. I think it was just about making sure a plug is available.
Yeah.
Not to be overly simplistic.
You are correct. The solar elements are more simplistic than the EV, but we wanted to bring them both together at the same time so committee can benefit from which ones have the most value and impact, and then what they both collectively together would do for cost and affordability potentially.
Okay, the other one I'm interested in, so where's the checkpoint here? Because I'm debating is a subsequent motion needed for like a report back, or kind of like on the other motion we did the RFP, we had a checkpoint come back. Like I'm willing to test this SROI process, but I'm just wondering when we'd see kind of like a test case or like a rubric or something for would it be this fall capital budget or?
Councillor Jans, it's Pascal Adouceur from IS. Since the policy, so what you have in front of you is a revised policy. And so what it would mean is that if you, if council should approve it, we would be looking to apply it to new projects that would be funded in the 27-30 budget. And so we could identify a test case, for example, continuing with the conversation on fire stations. Should council fund new fire stations, we could review and test case kind of the policy at that level. We would be doing so from also just understanding our own application of the policy and how to work with industry around it.
Okay, Thank you.
I'll come back for another round.
Thank you. Councillor Salvador?
Thank you. Just wanted to dig into the line of questioning around using SROI as sort of a gate, like a pass-fail gate, versus having our fixed climate objectives and then using SROI to optimize, and why we went with the pass-fail gate versus more of an optimization approach.
I'll just quickly start and then hand it off to the team here very quickly, just as a sort of a base for our answer. Last year, Infrastructure Committee did instruct us to go look and explore the SRI approach, and so that's why we built the report based on what you see here today, but then I'll turn it over to the team to provide a little more context.
Yeah, so just following up from what Ken said, really we're looking at using the SROI as a tool to ensure that the additional costs associated with the mission neutral buildings are justified by the expected environmental, social, and economic outcomes, really in light of that motion from last year in finding ways to identify cost savings from these projects. So.
Okay, and I guess I'm also struggling a little bit just with like the methodology around what that would look like.
Yeah, so I can expand a little bit. So we understand that SRI analysis can be very complicated, but we do also believe that there are some simple metrics that we can use as a test. So one primary item that one of the speakers mentioned is the social cost of carbon. So this is a metric that is widely used. It's published by Environment Canada, and it essentially applies a cost on our carbon emissions. And that cost is intended to really show the broader social costs of greenhouse gas emissions. So we already do life cycle costs assessments on our new building projects. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a new complex analysis. We can simply add things like the social cost of carbon into that cost assessment that we're doing already to understand, sort of the benefits and trade-offs associated with different design options.
Okay, and just seeing like how this would play out then, being able to, I guess, test that methodology and see how that is working in real time. To the earlier point, sort of having some projects that we can run it through in a way. How can we stay on top of that, I guess? So if we're noticing that, hey, this is working, we are achieving outcomes, we're achieving our objectives or not, like, is there a course correction conversation to be had there as well?
I can start with, we do our annual reporting on our C627 policy compliance and performance. So that could be one avenue for sort of demonstrating results and what we're learning so far. I'm not sure if there's anything that others would like to add.
And I'm out of time anyways, I'll come back. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just with the SROI, yeah, again, just sort of wanted to understand that optimization between upfront capital and long-term operating costs, and how that factors in with some of the other measurements.
Yeah, so we already do sort of a life cycle cost analysis on our building projects that look at not only the upfront capital costs, also the long-term utility costs and maintenance and replacement costs. So those are your sort of direct financial costs. The SRI expands that to look at broader social and environmental costs associated with that. So like I had mentioned, one of the primary costs would be the social cost of carbon. So that is a factor that can be, included. There's also some factors we can include associated with air quality impacts and the public health impacts associated with that, to sort of more to broadly assess those longer term social and environmental costs as well.
Okay, and sorry, there was an excerpt or a comment in the report, and I'm sorry I can't find where it is, but it talked about these changes still supporting an emissions neutral design However, energy use and corresponding utility costs would increase. So again, just want to understand, like, yeah, just the context for that, I guess.
Yeah, so there's a couple different items at play here. So we're also reviewing our administrative procedures at the same time. And one of the items that we found, to help improve cost savings is removing some of the prescriptive requirements that we have in our administrative procedures, which found we can still achieve, an emissions neutral design, but for lower costs. However, at those lower costs, you may have higher utility costs because you're using sort of more energy just with less efficient equipment. But because we do have, a renewable energy contract, that building would still be emissions neutral. And then I think that's what you're referring to in our report.
Okay, and I guess it's just sort of that optimization, right? And so am I assuming that ongoing increase in the operating cost is still going to be less than the additional upfront capital?
That's correct. Yeah. So the upfront capital costs have quite a big impact in that life cycle cost assessment, just because of both the magnitude of those costs as well as sort of the time value of money that we include in our assessments. So yes, over the life cycle, it would sort of be more weighted towards the upfront costs.
And then just triple checking as well, this is both new and buildings that we're renewing?
So the primary focus right now, I think, would be on new buildings. Buildings that are undergoing renewal also sort of undergo their own assessment and energy audits, but this is also a process that could be applied there.
Thank you. Councillor Jans?
Thank you. And thank you all for sticking with us. I share some of the concerns. So when I was thinking about the weighting of what I would want to see is certainly I'd want to see utility costs. It's a very clear, simple, obvious metric. I'd want to see the emissions noted. I'd want to know kind of energy efficiency and heat loss. I'd also want to know building comfort. I think I hear that those sorts of things would be considered as part of the SROI. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
But the question, I think, is the weighting. To what extent are they weighting? Because I fail to see anything that's making it through our capital process that won't be like a social good, like whether we're talking about a library or a rec center or a fire hall or something. Like all of them are going to have a gold star for being like a wonderful community amenity that contributes to social uplift and anti-racism and everything else. What I'm worried about is that where else are we making sure that shorting CapEx doesn't ding us on future OpEx? Like, is the SROI weighted properly?
Yeah, I would say it's based off of, some of the factors are based off of research in terms of what the actual societal costs are associated with those emissions. So for example, Environment Canada publishes a factor, and it's around, for every ton of carbon dioxide that we release, there's a social cost of $300, and that increases over time. So that's like a public factor that we could use, to sort of measure or put a dollar amount, I guess, to those carbon emissions. And there's similar factors that can be applied for other things, like you mentioned, building comfort and then utility costs. It's based off of our estimated utility prices.
Would it be too hard, because whatever we do here, it either has to go up to council or it's referred back. Would it be too hard to kind of attach the methodology, weighting, and revised procedures?
So I would say that
like if we were to pass this policy goes to council, could those things be attached as a attachment to the council report?
Yeah, so the procedures, we're working on the updates right now, but we could provide some more information on the assumptions that go into the SROI approach.
And are we still buying offsets?
The city has, sorry, Councillor Jans, this is Chandra Tamaris. The city has a 20-year green electricity contract where we're buying renewable energy attributes.
What year are we in?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Salvador?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just a similar question, just around procedures and assumptions and weighting and some of the methodology. So, just so I heard correctly, the assumptions, you can include that? That's readily available?
We could
Yeah.
provide more information,
Okay.
yeah.
And then as you're working on the
Just one-
procedures.
One quick, so, sorry, the procedures wouldn't be ready for this to
Yeah.
go to council if it followed the natural process, but the waiting could be.
Yeah, and I was trying to like kind of pull those apart. So on the procedure side, if there was a desire to see that, we could get that as kind of a follow-up memo or something
That's
as you're working on that?
Correct.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, would you need direction on that, or is that something you can provide?
That's something we can provide.
Okay, great. That would be helpful.
And our existing admin procedures are public. They are,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have a few different questions here. Just around the adaptation target, I think I really like the focus on this. Exciting to see. I'm just wondering around having an interim adaptation target. It seems long range out to 2050. Did we contemplate having an interim target? And I guess as a secondary question there, like the 10% citywide risk reduction over the 24 years seemed modest. I don't know. Like, how did we land on that?
So we could come back in future years with interim targets, sort of, if you think about it and sort of in terms of our knowledge or learning journey, similar to greenhouse gas emissions. We started with one big target, and then as we learned and understood, the measures and the impact those measures would have, we were able to come up with interim targets too. So we think we do need, though, sort of a full cycle to be able to understand and track what difference they had. But interim targets could be possible. We felt kind of technically most comfortable with having the final target until we had some more data. Yes, and the 10%, is it ambitious enough? That was my one of my first questions. But we believe that this target will have meaningful impact. It's a meaningful target, and it's based off of what we know is realistic at this time. So things will change, and we might understand that this target is not far enough, but it's based off of sort of the science and level of action needed. And yeah, as our understanding changes, we could bring back future recommendations to council to update that target.
Okay, that's good to hear. I would look forward to those future opportunities as work progresses to have just some more interim targets, but also sort of a reevaluation of how we can make sure that we're stretching, but also being realistic around those targets.
Thank you, and I will move the recommendation in the report. If you want to put that up for me. And then I will just ask a few questions. I really found it interesting about, the making sure, because again, when we're doing a policy, it's so high level, and then you create the procedures, and so I don't want to get in the weeds of that, but I do want to make sure that we're not moving the goalposts like some of our speakers spoke to. So we are still really focused on things that will reduce our emissions. And climate resiliency can be beyond just emission reductions, right? So that's why it's also a little bit more broader, because we just heard when we did the presentation from the insurance specialist, where I asked questions on 7.1, that our premiums will be dependent on how much we show mitigation for climate as well, right? So those kind of things will be factored.
Yeah, and I think, for example, with the existing policy, C627A, we could provide council with certainty that we were going to achieve the emission neutral outcome. With providing more flexibility, we are losing some of that certainty and the guarantee to achieve that outcome and how close we can get. And it's going to depend on the building. There's some buildings that are just more challenging, some buildings it'll be very easy to achieve that sort of outcome. So through this update, we're until we have gone through a number of designs, we can't give that certainty to council. Yeah.
So, but if we approve the policy today, you know, hearing some of the cautions, hearing some of the concerns, and I know you said you didn't need one, but is there, I do think that there is a benefit to having information come back with some, like almost case studies of how this has been applied to the budget, because ultimately, if we see it not working for the budget, we can flag that then. I don't know if that's, because I'm guessing if we approve this today, the reason one of the things it was timely is so that it can factor into capital profiles.
Councillor Rutherford, I think we can, we would certainly look to the annual updates that could provide additional information to council as we work with the policy and apply it, and then that could be used as a means to reflect lessons learned or how we've been applying and what decisions have been made throughout.
So there's opportunity to course correct then if council
Absolutely.
at the time doesn't feel like it is.
Absolutely, and I think the case studies themselves, because we would be applying them to actual capital projects, we would have an opportunity as we present the projects through the regular approval process for council to weigh in on that as well.
Okay.
And if I can just add, I think we want to also be sure of what is the target we're trying to achieve. So coming to that point where there's that decision, so that we're not trying to get to something overly ambitious and then we go so far advanced into the capital project that the costs then become something that is insurmountable, and then we have lose a period of time of reworking design and starting over, and then we're procuring construction a year later and we're at a new price point. And so I think understanding when do we have the right amount of information and how do we get the right level of target is something that I think actually is really important in terms of the time is money to council.
Okay, Councillor Salvador?
Just a question around the changes to internal advisory groups as well. With ETCRC no longer, I was curious if administration has had any conversations around having an internal advisory group as well to help inform this work and provide that expertise.
Yeah, Councillor, we have, knowing that council won't, we're not looking to create an advisory group for council, but we do and would appreciate from administration having that input from community and our local experts. So we are in discussions and working on a few different scenarios where we can really bring in that expertise that exists in the community. Right now, currently, we do have the emissions neutral group. They are strictly advisory. There's no voting. They provide their input and great ideas for us and help formulate what we bring forward to committee. But beyond that group, we are looking at what can we do to set up a new group, not for voting or guidance, but more for input and helping us through our thinking of some of these challenges.
Okay, I'm pleased to hear that. And sorry, the emissions neutral group that currently exists, that's the one that we heard from our speaker.
That is correct. Yeah,
that's just the annual, once a year.
It's as needed. It has met more than once a year when we were really busy. That's something administration set up to really get some input from the community and fill some of our knowledge gaps.
Gotcha. Okay, so this would be sort of in addition to.
This would be in addition.
Okay, and then just wanted a quick commentary around the carbon budget versus climate budget, because that's a change.
So next week at Executive Committee, there will be a little bit of an update around that process, but the idea here is now that we have a carbon budget and we are able to understand sort of those carbon or GHG impacts, to also now look at the impacts on the adaptation side. So it's carbon budget plus adaptation now, so GHG emissions plus adaptation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or anyone to speak to the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I think for the recommendation, I'm comfortable with the policy updates. I mean, they're not perfect. They could be less, they could be more. We've kind of heard both sides of that tonight from speakers. But I think it's a good practical, systematic way to move forward. I like the SROI addition on that. I think using that as a real metric is good. And I think focusing on the positive return on investment is nice to have that in there, and the greater flexibility as well. So I look forward to supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have nothing further at this time, so please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. And now we will move on to item 6.1. And for anybody following the hop along with our agenda, and this one, I know this, just a bit of a summary, we had started discussing this one.
Yes, I believe you received a presentation and heard from speakers.
Yes.
And had actually started questions of admin.
Yes, we had started questions, so we're just picking up from there, but I do know that there is some in-private component, so if anybody has questions, I know I have questions in private, but I'll wait to see if anybody else has questions in public on this item. Nope. Okay, I will move that we go into private.
Sections last time were 19, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, and 29, advice from officials.
Yes, for those reasons. I knew it was the 19, I just didn't know if it was just 19. Perfect. Any questions on going into private? Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. I'll just give you a few minutes. Thank you. I think we don't have any other questions on this item. There is a motion just to keep the attachment in private, so I'm happy to move that. Anyone else have any questions? See none. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. And now we'll move on to the final item, item 7.2, Central Area Bridge Update. And is it the same folks?
I don't need a presentation. I don't know if the Councillor Stevenson had wanted it as well, but I'd be happy to go to questions given the hour.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't select it anyway, Councillor Jans. Technically, Mayor Knack did, but
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
yeah, I think that if councillors there, because there's no public speakers, I don't think we need necessarily to do the presentation unless there is interest from council. So I'll just turn to council and committee. Does anybody feel like they need a presentation on this item? Nobody online is indicating otherwise. Okay, we'll just go straight to questions of administration. So, Councillor Jans, did you have questions?
Yeah, just a quick run here. Thank you for this. Just wondering, is this going to be classified as growth or renewal?
Okay, nobody from finance. I believe it is going to be categorized as growth. And
so what's the so it'd be for this budget cycle or the next budget cycle?
And so the construction of the low-level bridge replacement would start in 2029 is the current schedule. And so the request for funding would come during one of the supplemental budget adjustments ahead of that. So 2028, I believe, is our objective.
Okay, and James McDonald Bridge, what's the capacity?
I don't.
And I guess when do we hit capacity? That's I guess maybe if we could follow that up.
Absolutely.
Similar to the high level bridge, I had a subsequent motion there asking just about trying to get a sense of usage stats and making sure we're building for BRT and flex and everything else.
Yes, we're well aware of your motion, and the memo is being drafted as we speak. And Natalie wants to weigh in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in on the same, Pascal. We have the memo vastly drafted for you, Councillor Jans. We have included in the memo and are just working on some of the final details of it. The usage stats for all of the various central area bridges, including looking to the future forecasts and transit use, passenger vehicle use, and so on. So all of that detail would be included in the memo that will follow up from this report.
Awesome. So is it too soon to say if BRT is being contemplated for low level, for James McDonald, for high level, for?
So at this point, we're still working through the mass transit planning for the BRT. We do have a little bit more work and analysis to do where it comes to the river crossing, but at this stage, we are anticipating the BRT likely to align more closely with the high level bridge.
This is amazing. My 3 minutes just started. Yeah, well, and then finally, I guess I'm just confirmation that active modes will be considered during the northbound closure, that we'll be taking a look at all of that, how we're going to redirect during construction.
Yes, Councillor Jans, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to get a sense if this is classified as growth, sort of, again, just the likelihood of that funding being available versus I'm wondering if a scenario where the James McDonald Bridge was expanded as part of its renewal was explored as an option.
So from a classification perspective, I would say that the renewal program so the bridge renewal program would not be in a place to support expansion of a bridge or replacement of a bridge. It doesn't have the capacity for this level of infrastructure, and so I think the qualification of the funding may be not as critical in this case because it is most likely going to be debt funded, and so growth or renewal, it becomes something that is outside of our renewal capacity. And Natalie can speak to the network analysis that was done to confirm that the replacement of the low-level bridge was why we move forward with that, which was a previous report presented to committee.
That's right, Pascal. So we had looked at the river crossing requirements when it comes to the vehicular and pedestrian and transit and active transportation uses of the river. Looking at that analysis, it was very essential that we replace the low-level bridge somewhat near the location that it exists today. Just for context, for the Central Area River bridges, about just slightly less than a quarter of the river crossings are happening at the low-level bridge crossing, and so it's very difficult to accommodate that on the existing bridges.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of something like the Quesnel Bridge where lanes were added to that existing structure. And again, just wondering if that's a cost-effective way to replace the capacity rather than a brand new bridge.
Just building on that, absolutely, we did look at the opportunity of widening other bridges, and that would cover a portion of the lane capacity that would be lost with the low-level bridge going out of service. But it doesn't replace anywhere near what we need, not only now but into the future. We are expecting vehicle trips, transit trips, and active transportation trips to continue to expand over time in the tens of thousands of additional trips in over the next 30 years. And so no matter which way we looked at it, it was still very essential that we look at a new river crossing. We can't widen the existing bridges enough. And similarly, the destinations and origins of the users that are crossing the river, this crossing was needed.
Okay, yeah, I'm out of time.
That's okay. You're the only one. If you'd like to do it, would you like to do another round?
Yes, if I could.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
I was just wondering in terms of the funding mechanisms for some of the road rationalization, does that get capitalized into the overall bridge decommissioning? And again, can the decommissioning be debt funded?
Councillor Stevenson, when we are decommissioning an asset by replacing it, yes, we are allowed to capitalize those costs.
Okay, great. And then just the broader roadworks of potentially, rationalizing the approaches.
Yeah, so there's a lot of design work that still needs to be done to understand what the work would be directly related to the low-level bridge and what could be contemplated as either related work or subsequent work. And so those details will be developed over the next few years, and the discussions with council will take place. As we noted in the report, there are multiple touch points coming in the next few years that will allow us to work through all of those questions.
Okay, yeah, really appreciate that. And then just from the initial review, do we anticipate any land acquisition being required? Or, yeah, just wondering about that new approach in landing.
Natalie can confirm, but I don't believe so.
That's right, Pascal. So we're working within the footprint of the land that the city already stewards. So at this point in time, we're not expecting any land acquisition. And in fact, some of the work that we're doing, we're looking to free up some of the land in the river valley for other uses, perhaps returning it to green space.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Jans?
Yeah, sorry. Two more questions. One, what's the delta on making it beautiful? Thinking about the Walterdale there. Are we talking like 1% or 5%?
It could be significantly more than that if we are looking at a signature bridge. Natalie?
I don't have an exact number off the top of my head. I know that we've talked about, you know, significant percentages over and above the existing cost that we would be, pardon me, not the existing cost, over and above a functional cost, but it really can vary quite significantly depending on how signature you go. You know, there's varying degrees of what a signature bridge could look like and the impacts of that. So it is a bit of a spectrum.
And Councillor Jans, in this case, because the project is looking to maintain the historical bridge, one of the reasons that the functional bridge is also being advanced is that it allows for the existing low-level bridge to be the center of attention in that crossing.
Okay, no, I understand. And finally, just with the daylighting Mill Creek, have we explored, or is it going to be explored, kind of, for lack of a better term, a partial or sectional daylighting? Like maybe some of it towards the north portion would be daylighted, but maybe some of the other portions still have to remain underground?
Natalie?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. And the first focus for us is working on the most essential piece of the infrastructure that needs to be replaced, and that's the time sensitive piece of the low level bridge replacement. With that, we will most certainly have to adjust the north approaches, and so there is a good opportunity on the north side of the river for us to do a look at what that could look like from a daylighting perspective. It's the south side where the Mill Creek Ravine, for example, and the daylighting study has a lot of opportunities identified, but we aren't going to be changing the south connection point too significantly. So the opportunities we will be looking at, but the timing of them is not necessarily going to be directly aligned with the bridge replacement. They could follow. So we'll be focusing on the bridge replacement first, and then as well as the daylighting examination in parallel with the planning study, and then the timing of the rest of that will be determined as we go along.
And there's a potential for this to be included as part of the flood mitigation work EPCOR is doing?
Those are.
I'll come back to that. I'll follow up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Salvador?
Yeah, thank you. Just building on that question, I'm very interested in the daylighting conversation as well around Mill Creek, and just wanted to understand, how this work is intersecting with, I know on the climate front, we have some work coming forward around climate implementation priorities, and I believe there's contemplation as part of that report around daylighting and mitigating erosion, river related work, and just wanted to make sure that those two bodies of work are talking to one another, and also forecast. I intend to move a motion at one of those upcoming conversations about daylighting, and just wanted to make sure that it's intertwined and we're not kind of talking past each other as this work continues.
No, we can absolutely assure you, Councillor Salvador, that the conversations will be happening with all those considerations in mind, and responding to Councillor Jans with EPCOR as we look at flood mitigation, daylighting opportunities. What Natalie was mentioning is that the immediate need for infrastructure replacement of the low-level bridge, as we have moved forward between the previous report that confirmed that the replacement was the way to go, and this report, which kind of starts to show you the alignment and what the bridge is anticipated to look like. While we have opportunities to look at the south connections, it may not be as necessary for the low-level bridge replacement as we may have previously anticipated, which means that we may be we would be looking at more of a phased and a long-term plan for those south approaches that would incorporate daylighting and could be part of a bigger project, whereas the bridge replacement itself might move forward faster than that.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Thank you. And with that, I'm not seeing any other questions on this item. And this was a receipt of information report, so thank you for sharing this information with us, and look forward to hearing more about these projects as they progress. And because we do not have time, I did mention that any sort of potential subsequents we would do as notices of motion if we got close to time. So I know Councillor Salvador has had a subsequent that she'll convert to a notice of motion on item a subsequent, that would have been a subsequent to 7.6. Please go ahead and give your notice.
So I'm just finding it here. So I guess this would be at the next regular council meeting. I would move.
Or you want exec? You could do exec.
Am I still within the time limit to do exec? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So at the next executive committee meeting, I'll move that administration prepare for consideration during the 2027 to 2030 budget deliberations options for increasing funding for capital profile CM 20-0330 to complete all remaining routes identified in attachment 3 of the August 26, 2026 infrastructure services report IS 03688 and an unfunded capital profile to continue the implementation of the bike plan informed by the forthcoming active transportation implementation guide.
Thank you. And then I think that Councillor Jans also has a notice of motion, and I just wanted to get clarity that it would be 5 clear days to the next Urban Planning Committee, because you do count the weekend in that.
Yeah, and it's the weekend too.
Perfect. So you could do the notice to debate that at the next Urban Planning Committee, Councillor Jans, and I will give it to you to do your notice.
I'll give, if you can hear me, I give notice that at the next Urban Planning Committee, we will debate that I will move that administration undertake a review and update of the complete streets and other relevant guiding documents to refine active transportation design standards for active transportation network expansion, neighborhood renewal, and other relevant capital programs, including standardizing bidirectional lanes of the preferred on-street facility with clear parameters for when alternatives would be considered. And secondly, revising options to allow the stacking of minimum and constraint standards on existing streets with reference to the design domain concept, design exception process, and the role of the community values in informing decision-making, and return to, no, that's it.
Thank you. And then I'll just look to my committee members. Are there any other notices of motion or motions without customary notice? Not hearing any. With that, we are adjourned at 8:58. Thank you, everyone. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, staff. Thank you for everyone who stayed.
yeah, that's what I was.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you for the willingness to have clerks switch over and be able to stay later and do that shift. And thank you to city staff that stayed on for the duration of the meeting. So have a good night, everyone. We are adjourned.